What is parity? No, not parity, parity. A group has parity when all of the members are in a more or less equal state. In sports, it's the idea that everybody eats, that many teams have a chance each year, something I think most fans would agree is good for any sport. Knowing this, you would think that the NBA, the second most popular sports league on the planet, would resemble this idea well. Not even close. See, pro basketball is a sport that is dominated by the Dynasty. 44% of NBA championships have been won by 2 teams. 78% of them have been won by just 8 teams. Meanwhile, there are 10 current NBA teams who have never won a championship at all. I can't name every NBA champion to the year, but I can usually do pretty well on a quiz by ripping the good old Lakers, Celtics, Lakers for the years I don't know. NBA and parity don't really belong in the same sentence. Until recently. As of 2025, the last 7 NBA championships have been won by 7 different teams, the longest streak of its kind in league history. Now there's one clear takeaway from this trend. It's never going to end and there's never going to be a repeating champion ever again. Calling all therapists in these cities, I would probably start investing in meme coins or have some sort of contingency plan at least, because your clientele might seriously decline in the next 23 years. Jokes aside, what is the main takeaway for this rapid switch in the NBA hierarchy? The 2010s NBA was one of the league's most unbalanced eras, seeing the same finals matchup a record 4 years in a row and 2 seasons that basically everyone knew the champion before the season even began. To go from that to a league where nobody can keep their grasp on the throne and teams who are winning the finals one year aren't even coming close in the next, it leads people to think that the age of the NBA dynasty, an age that really encompasses the entire league's history, is over. That the NBA dynasty is dead. And the people making these bold claims aren't just chalking this up to luck. No, there's one prime suspect being continually blamed for the death of the dynasty. I thought the NBA was a basketball league. Why are we talking about cooking equipment? The dreaded second apron, the salary cap rule tearing up contending teams around the league, and every NBA fan's favorite buzzword that they don't understand at all. And that's not a jab to the people who don't understand it. For how much the NBA talking heads like to mention the second apron, they've done a really poor job on educating the fans on what it actually does. When a salary rule that nobody understands is supposedly responsible for causing all these mind-boggling moves, you're gonna start blaming it for everything just off human instinct.
Thanks for picking me up, bro. Oh, and by the way, what was that text in the group chat? Like, you told everyone not to show up and, like, find a new men's league. Like, bro, we only have 5 people in that. Do you not realize that? What do you mean? Second apron, man. Times have changed. I can't afford all these guys. What do you think I'm gonna do? I told Jason to go play for Team Revenge. Hopefully they pay his ass.
To evaluate whether or not the second apron salary rules are truly the catalyst in the NBA's new wave of parity, we first need to understand what the hell it is. NBA salary crash course beginning in 3, 2... The NBA salary cap is set at a certain number each year, which is the amount of money you have to spend on players' contracts. However, this number is a soft cap, meaning teams can go over it very easily to keep their players. Once you go over the cap though, there are 4 tiers you can be in: non-taxpayer, luxury tax, first apron, and second apron. Non-taxpayers get no extra restrictions other than those that come with being over the cap to begin with. Luxury taxpayers also don't have many roster building constrictions. The luxury tax in itself is supposed to be a restriction for big spending, as it charges the owners extra for every dollar they're over the luxury tax number, with the amount depending on how much you're over the luxury tax and how many years you've been in it. The luxury tax has always been enough to stop cheap owners from building an expensive team, as despite large contracts typically being conducive to team success, many owners just want to keep their team profitable. An example of the luxury tax causing a massive basketball move is when the Thunder traded James Harden, not because he was a bad player, but because they didn't want to pay a lot of luxury tax. tax. The only roster building restriction that comes with being in the luxury tax is a smaller mid-level exception, meaning you can't offer free agents as much when you're over the cap. However, because richer teams in big markets could pay heavy luxury tax bills while the small markets had to stay frugal, in 2023 the NBA introduced much stricter basketball penalties for spending heavy into the luxury tax. These are what's known as the first and second aprons. The first apron, a salary number around 4.5% greater than the luxury tax threshold, isn't a huge deal. Restrictions on acquiring sign and trade and waived players, no biannual exception, and stricter salary matching rules in trades. Not great, but not devastating. You can still make sufficient roster changes, it'll just be harder. The second apron though, oh boy. All of the first apron restrictions plus no mid-level exception meaning you can't sign any free agents unless they're minimum deals, can't take in any extra money in trades, meaning second apron teams just can't trade players for each other unless it's literally dollar for dollar, can't use trade exceptions, can't trade 2 contracts to get 1 in return, can't trade your first round pick 7 years in the future, and if you're in the second apron long enough, that pick automatically goes to number 30. Holy shit. The second apron isn't a hard cap, but it may as well be. Any team over the second apron is essentially stuck in the mud. You can't really move your roster around other than dumping the high contract players who your team is probably built around. If you're in the second apron, you better be damn sure that your team is good enough for a championship, because otherwise you're going to have a really tough time making upgrades. It's why the Timberwolves traded Cat out of nowhere. It's why the Suns couldn't sign anybody except minimum contract scraps around their big three. It's why the Celtics salary dumped 2 of their 5 starters just 1 season removed from a championship. The NBA wanted to punish big-time spenders with these rules, and they sure as hell did so. The second apron really is the horror that all the talking heads have made it out to be. The risk of being above it is one that even the richest and most successful of NBA teams aren't willing to endure. And yes, it certainly could be part of the reason for the NBA's new surge in parity. But it's not the only reason. This trend goes back 7 years. The second apron was only a thing for 2 of those seasons. What other rule changes could possibly explain the NBA's new era of parity? In the 2017 collective bargaining agreement, a new contract was introduced called the Designated Veteran Player Extension, better known as the Supermax. The Supermax contract is exactly how it sounds. It's a contract bigger than the typical max contract. Like the first and second apron rules, this is another rule put in by the NBA to help the small market teams, as it allows them to offer their homegrown stars more than other teams are on the free agent market. Yeah, let's help small market teams by making them pay more than normal to force stars to stay in town. This rule's got plenty of pros and cons that I won't bore you with today, but the main impact it's had on the league is that free agency is effectively dead. Think of all the big NBA moves in the 2020s. They're pretty much all trades. The Supermax contracts incentivize stars to re-sign in-house, and the larger contracts make it harder for any teams to have cap space in free agency. Teams and players these days would rather just sign contract extensions and figure out trades later if both sides are unhappy. This affects chances at an NBA dynasty because teams can't just assemble overnight like the 2010 Miami Heat or the 2019 Brooklyn Nets, because they'd have to give up some serious assets if they had to trade. Kevin Durant's a perfect example of this change in philosophy. In 2016, he notoriously joined the Warriors in free agency. While they did have to let some guys walk to free up some room, they basically added KD to their existing core and didn't have to give up anything to the Thunder. But in 2023, the other time KD wanted to leave his team, the Nets now were trading with another team to move KD elsewhere, which got them a boatload of assets that ironically replenished the ones they lost doing the same thing themselves in 2021. When every star player leaving has a counter move that gives the former team lots of assets, it's inherently going to create a more balanced league than when these guys were just leaving for nothing. So if these rule changes are really causing the lack of dynasties in recent years, we gotta put it to the test.
That's right, today we're gonna be playing Would These NBA Dynasties Survive? The Second Apron!
The first two NBA dynasties, the Minneapolis Lakers and the Bill Russell Celtics, are gonna get an N/A. Sure, this could have happened today, but the league back then and the league today just can't be compared at all. Let me know the next NBA season that has racial segregation, 9 teams, and has superstars like Bill Russell getting traded for an ice show in Rochester.
We interrupt your usual programming to let you know that the Timberwolves' high-flying superstar Anthony Edwards has just been traded to the Atlanta Hawks for the rights of 50 Lil Baby concerts at the Target Center in Minnesota. I don't listen to that rap stuff, but this trade is pretty crazy. But ever since that Luka Doncic trade, when Luka Doncic got traded to the Lakers, nothing surprises me anymore.
Jumping past the Plumbers era and into the 80s, we have the Showtime Lakers. Still a dynasty with today's rules? Yes, but they benefited on some bullshit that wouldn't happen today, but who cares? I'm ultimately giving them the yes because their biggest stars were either drafted or traded for, but they did get insanely lucky with the trades for the picks that led to Magic and James Worthy. But history is history, we can't take that away from them. Because they got very good while Magic and Worthy were still young, they would have largely avoided the second apron until the very end of their reign. They would be just as good. The Larry Bird Celtics of this era would be okay too. They pretty much kept the same core for all 3 of their rings and likely would have avoided the second apron for the first 2 of them. They would run into some trouble with the second apron in 1985 and wouldn't be able to sign Bill Walton to a hypothetical mid-level exception. So maybe they can't win that 3rd ring. It depends on how valuable you think Walton was to that championship. Would Michael Jordan's 6 rings survive? Absolutely. Even if Scottie Pippen got paid what he deserved, they probably would have avoided the second apron for many of these championship seasons, and even when Rodman's contract got expensive toward the end, they didn't really make any key moves that the second apron would have stopped. All 6 rings are approved. The Shaq and Kobe Lakers, this is where it could get interesting. Shaq joined the Lakers via unrestricted free agency right after his rookie contract, something that just can't happen today. It's tough to just invalidate this move. When Orlando did lowball him, it was completely their fault for him leaving. But if we are treating it with the rules of today, Shaq just can't leave like this. If he got traded to Los Angeles, it's almost impossible to say that Kobe wouldn't be included. I'll give these rings an N/A because it just wouldn't happen today. But if they did assemble these teams, they would probably be fine regarding the second apron and all that. The later Lakers championship teams with Kobe and Pau Gasol are mostly untouched, except for one thing. The Lakers would have been over the second apron in the 2009 offseason, meaning they couldn't sign Ron Artest using the MLE like they originally did. This is a huge loss for LA. Artest was big for them in the 2010 finals. It's like the 86 Celtics not being able to sign Bill Walton, but instead of losing a key bench player in a 6-game finals series, Artest was a starter who scored 20 in the very close championship clinching Game 7. I'll say the Lakers won't win the 2010 championship without him, so the second apron would take away one of the Lakers' 5 rings from this era. The Spurs dynasty though, they're all good. All of their championship stars were drafted by them, and they all took pay cuts to keep this team together, especially Tim Duncan. Toward the end of his prime, he signed a contract worth half of what the max was to help them maintain their stacked roster. That leaves us with the 2 dynasties of the 2010s, the Big 3 Heat and the Warriors. The Heat, as I mentioned earlier, would run into some trouble. As with the Shaq to LA thing, moves like this just wouldn't really happen today. Miami would have had to trade for Bosh and LeBron, gutting their depth entirely, and by the time 2012 came around, they would have been in the second apron, meaning they couldn't sign Ray Allen under the mid-level exception. Maybe Ray signs for the minimum. He was already taking a pay cut with Miami, but let's say he doesn't. I think if they could put this team together today, which again is a big if, they would win at least 1 ring, probably 2. And finally, Golden State would be fine, with some exceptions of course. The 1st and 4th rings in 2015 and 2022 are fine. It's when KD comes into the picture that it gets tricky. Kevin Durant to the Warriors probably doesn't happen with modern salary rules, but these rules exist because of the Kevin Durant signing. It's weird, but we gotta stick to our rules. Kevin Durant can't sign to the Warriors. Because the Warriors won the championship both before and after Kevin Durant's time with the team, I have no trouble saying that they would have won at least one of these championships without him, probably both. The Thunder still having Kevin Durant, as well as the Cavs pre-Kyrie Irving trade, would have had a good shot to beat this Warriors team, but I still think the Warriors were the best team, and again, would have won at least one of the rings they had. All in all, the Warriors dynasty passes the test.
Thanks for playing. Would these NBA dynasties survive the second apron? Stay tuned for next week. We've got Would these NBA dynasties survive a league with young Hutson? I don't think the answer is yes.
So after looking at every dynasty in NBA history and applying the dreaded dynasty killing rules of today, we can see that not a whole lot actually changes. The dynasties that formed through big free agent signings like Shaq to the Lakers, the Big Three Heat, and the KD Warriors wouldn't come to fruition today due to the state of free agency as well as the stricter contract rules. The second apron, meanwhile, would have stopped key depth signings like Bill Walton to the Celtics and Ron Artest to the Lakers, two moves that allowed their dynasties to keep going. But the point still stands. There's a way to win big in the second apron era. Sure, the league is more balanced in general today, with the skill level being higher than ever, but the second apron isn't a hard cap. It doesn't force you to get rid of a good team. Theoretically, if a team willing to spend a lot of money built a team that was good enough to win championships without making a big roster change, they'd be able to withstand the second apron. Somebody's gonna do it, it's just a matter of who will do it first. You know, I think we already got the answer to that. Now let me preface this by saying, I'm not claiming OKC will become a dynasty, but they're sure as hell built to give themselves a shot. Yeah, I just pulled the good old make a hot take and immediately backtrack on it to absolve yourself from any responsibility if that claim is wrong move. Yeah, I know, but this is about if a dynasty is possible in the modern era, not whether or not I think a specific team will actually do it. Take one look at what OKC is building and it shares lots of similarities to the Lakers and Celtics dynasties of the 80s. They got good fast, with big contributions from two guys still on their rookie deals. This step's importance to a dynasty in the modern era can't be overstated. If you have a championship level core, surrounding them with a supporting cast is so much easier before your best players are making massive amounts of money. OKC did exactly this. They signed most of their guys long term before the salaries got tricky with J-Dub and Chet. As of the 2025 offseason, they have basically everyone from this championship team locked up until 2029 outside of Hartenstein and Dort. Getting those guys back would certainly put them in some insane luxury tax bills, but they could theoretically. If they don't, so what? They've got a boatload of first round picks that they can use every single year whenever they need some fresh talent. If they don't, they'll just trade it to the next year. Many people, including myself, were scratching their heads on why the Thunder didn't cash in all these draft picks for a blockbuster move. But it's because they're playing the long game. The Thunder will hit the second apron if they keep this current team. There's no doubt about that. Having all these draft picks ensures that they'll at least have a shot to maintain a championship level cast around their core three, assuming Sam Presti keeps up his incredible drafting. Will the owners cheap out like last time the Thunder had a bright future? Who knows? But unless a lot of things change in the next 4 years, OKC is guaranteed at least a shot at a dynasty. A young team this good who's already won the championship and has most of their roster locked up for another 4 seasons can only be stopped by injuries. And even if they're not all successful yet, a lot of teams are catching on to OKC's method of rebuilding. The Houston Rockets, Brooklyn Nets, Utah Jazz, and yes, them have taken OKC's approach of stacking up as many assets as possible and trying to get good early. Still waiting on that second part, guys. The second apron is a damn scary place. It poses the biggest threat to big spending than ever before in the NBA. It's a no-brainer to avoid it like the plague unless you're damn sure your team is capable of winning a championship. And it is the reason why we saw some of the most unforeseen trades in NBA history the last few seasons. The second apron is changing the game, just not in the way people think. The key to understanding this modern era of NBA balance is that the best teams are going to prevail. The homegrown super teams, the special groups, the groups that define eras, the dynasties, they'll be just fine. I don't think the dynasty is going anywhere. Whether it's OKC or another team, somebody's gonna prove that while the second apron and all these new rules make team building harder, Dynasties are special, and they will prevail. But you know, I also wouldn't mind being wrong if this unique champion thing keeps up. I'd do a lot of things to guarantee a championship in the next 23 years. We are here reporting live outside the 2048 NBA Finals, where the 30th and final original NBA team, the Washington Wizards, will be facing off against fucking me. All right, just made my NBA debut. Scored 14 points last game, not bad. Only lost by 157. Got swept. But I only got one thing on my mind, though. We did it.